Welcome back to part two of my conversation with Shane Monahan, rugby player turned entrepreneur. In the first part of our conversation, we talked about his rugby career. So if you haven't listened to it yet, I highly recommend that you go back and listen to part one of my conversation with him. In this part, we talk about how he came to terms with the fact that his rugby career was coming to an end, how he let go of his dream of playing for Ireland, and how he came up with his idea for his business, Limor. We also talk about all things podcasts, a topic that you won't be surprised to hear is very dear to both of our hearts.
Welcome to Your Big Career Move, where your host, Yeshim Nicholson, chats to people about their big career moves, uncovers their motivations, their fears, their successes, and everything in between. Be inspired by their stories, and if you're thinking of making your own big career move, head over to yescareercoaching.com. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
It was ending. And then I kind of had to accept that. And then I said, right, what's next? Wasn't fear. It was, as I said, it was just the same mindset I had previously in rugby. I just plugged out from rugby and plugged in, what's next? What do I want to do? How do I want to achieve it? And it was going into an unknown. It was the Limor was the thing I wanted to do. It was in the tech field, which I knew very little about, but I did know you needed a lot of money if you wanted to do it. So I knew I had to build a vision and a dream and go out and raise money, because I certainly didn't have it, and build something. Again, looking back, I wasn't just building a new business. I was building a new genre, a new marketplace that didn't exist at all. And I can say that confidently now, the way it just didn't exist. So I'm trying to sell a dream and a vision to someone. It's like trying to sell social media in the 1980s. Not far off. People are like, what the hell is this? And when I started the journey, people are like, what's a podcast?
Yeah.
And I'm selling social audio, and so that was difficult. The fear aspect, there's very, very little things that would make you fearful, walking down an alley and a guy pulls out a knife. That's where you'd have your fear and adrenaline, and that's where you'd be fearful. It's more, again, for me, because I do have investors that helped me get to this stage, my family. It's more the same kind of philosophy I had with my coaches and my teammates. That's how I look at them, to perform and not let them down, because if the company doesn't succeed or doesn't achieve what I know it can achieve, I know I'll be fine. I'll go on to something else. Although I don't have a plan B mentality, I don't want to let them down, because they've believed in me, in my vision, and it's not just words. They've invested their hard-earned money into me and my business, and I have to do absolutely everything within my power to make it succeed for them. So
that's interesting, because that's one of the things that I was wanting to speak to you about, because obviously you come from this background where you do have this team and everybody clubs together and you're part of something bigger than just you. So when you leave that, and I guess in the beginning it is just you, how do you rebuild that team or that sense of team around you?
I suppose there was kind of muscle memory things mentally, because I was exposed to the top 1% of professional athletes and coaches for my whole life, essentially, especially in the last 10 years. Leaders, people you follow and how they conduct themselves and engage. And I basically was taking off my player hat and putting on a management hat, coaching hat, selector hat now, because I had to go in and build my own team, like you're saying. And that was very important. Again, Steve Jobs, the famous one, hire people who are smarter than you. So I knew my skill set, I knew my vision. Again, all coming back to the rugby experience, I was a winger predominantly my whole career. I don't score tries unless I have a hooker or a front row or a number 10 or people inside me that can do skills that I don't have. And I knew it was going to be the case here as well. So trying to navigate the tech world, I had the product design degree, which gave me a foundation of understanding what you needed to do and stages of it. But, best laid out plans never survive first contact with the enemy. Aaron
But also
Rommel.
it's different being part of a team to then, exactly like you just said, to then being the leader or the coach or whatever analogy you want to make, where you are essentially creating the team. How did you find that transition?
No, fine. I didn't find that hard whatsoever. It's a skill set I think I have in terms of identifying talent, or identifying people that can fit into my way of thinking and who will get on well with people who have already been brought into the fold. Again, there's that green flags, red flag situation. You have some people with unbelievable skill set, but they're just not the right personality type. So generally, I'm pretty good at that. But again, I still am spinning a hell of a lot of plates in that. Yeah, I'm management, or I'm the coach, I'm the selector, I'm selecting all these people. But at the same time, I'm trying to build something that has never been done before. And you're trying to evolve that. So you need to select people with the skill set that can buy into that vision, who can understand it at a certain level, so they're willing to put in money and support where they can. Then there's the tech aspect, getting the right tech people to come in and that they understand that too. And it doesn't always work. I'd say I've been 98% successful in the people we've brought in, maybe that's a bit high, maybe 85%, which is
pretty high. We'll take
a
that.
pretty good strike rate. We've some fantastic people on the cap table, some amazing people who've come in terms of helping the team. One guy in particular has been unbelievable, is Graham Beag. He, again, mindset wise, is extremely successful entrepreneur, businessman in his own right, and athlete. He was an Olympian. He swam for Ireland in the Olympics,
Wow.
so he had the same mindset. That's where we clicked as well, in terms of like how difficult that is of a sport. He has been a massive part in terms of the support network. One of your other questions is outside my family, and very, very few very few friends you can actually talk to about this, because they just can't understand it. But he's been a massive, massive help, and he's been in the trenches with me ever since we started working together, and believed in it, and understood the vision. And he's an expert in risk. He's ex KPMG trained risk specialist. So his thing is about predicting the future as well. And he looked into this, and he says there is something happening here, and has believed in it. And working when he brings a hell of a lot of credibility, as I said, skill set that I don't have, a network, which is the other side of it. That's key to any business and entrepreneurship, is network. How can I get the right network working with me, or expand it? And, strategic investors, they bring in money, but yes, they bring in their network, and Graham's network is just second to none. So
I love when people say, oh, so-and-so believed in me, because often we just need one person to just 100% believe in us, and we can move mountains. You just need one cheerleader sometimes. I think some people need more than that. But I know for me, if I know I've got one person that's going, this is a great idea, go for it, that's all I need. I need
it's huge.
very little encouragement.
Yeah. It's massive, and you do need that. You do need that support, someone to bounce ideas off, and someone to go to that knows that, yeah, you're not a lunatic. There is something here, and you have the capability, and it's the other people that are wrong. So everyone is very, very risk adverse to things that are new and different to a certain extent. If you're not, a major fund with billions of dollars who can take the gamble and the risk, we had to adapt and evolve with that, and then everything opens up again, and you're back to where you were at the start. So you have to adopt, and that all takes money and time and research and development, and but
Agility.
you learn agility, and it's something we can do as a smaller business. Definitely, that's the advantage of being a speedboat as opposed to an oil tanker. You can turn very, very quickly.
Yeah.
But you still need money to fuel that, and drive that. And I suppose that's your life goes on hold. Everything outside of Limor for me has just been on hold, full stop, since I started, essentially 7 or 8 years, whatever it is.
So you started with these paintings, right? You leave, or you're starting to edge your way out of rugby. You start doing what is very visual art, and then you end up in audio.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
It's, funnily enough, how I fell in love with podcasts was the art. because I started painting, and it was actually my brother introduced me. The first ever podcast I listened to was a podcast called London Real,
Oh,
which
yeah.
is
Is that
fellas.
still going?
I think it is. I don't listen to it as much anymore. Brian Rose is
Yeah.
the co-founder. There's another guy, I can't think of his name. This is how early it was when I started listening to it. And they split up and Brian started doing his own thing. And Brian's, he's a showman and an expert, a good marketer. But I actually met him as part of one of the first people I spoke to about Limor when I was trying to raise investment. Believe it or not, is that I've met some amazing people before he even blew up,
I think he's very Marmite as well for people,
Oh
isn't
yeah,
he?
100%. Yeah, he's gone down a certain direction, which put off a lot of his original listeners, but he's still going, and it's right for him. But it's yeah, Marmite is a good way to describe
Shane,
it. But I started listening, and my brother introduced me to that, and then one of the other first ones. I'm a big wrestling fan, WWE. I don't know if you're WWF. Stone Cold Steve Austin, you may have heard of him. The Rattlesnake. He started a podcast. All the wrestlers were very early doors. Were the first people to kind of really adopt podcasting. And I started listening to him because I was painting portraits. And the beauty of audio and podcasting is you can multitask. You can't do that with video. You just can't. You can try, but it's just too distracting. And you can't read either. So I'm there painting portraits and getting entertained and educated. And I go, geez, these things are amazing. And it's just like it's different to radio. It's like, well, what's the difference? No, it is different to radio. It is very different than the experience and the content and everything that goes with it. And I go, these podcast things are brilliant. So that was my introduction to podcasts. And then I became a fan. And this is, again, before anyone was listening to podcasts of any note globally. None of my social circle or anyone were listening to them. And I got into them that way. And then I went home out to Ireland for Christmas, was having a conversation with my dad. My dad is in a local voluntary group. Drogheda is my hometown, trying to get city status. Very similar to Gloucester type of town, but trying to get city status for the local community and business and all that kind of stuff. And he was getting quite frustrated because they did all this great work and no one knew about it. They would write letters to the newspaper and they wouldn't get published, or if they did, they were gone after 24 hours. So he's like, Shane, is there anything we can do to market, let people know what we're doing? We need help. And I said, well, Dad, you guys, I've been to their meetings. You have fantastic conversations. You meet amazing people, politicians, business owners. You guys are all able to speak. You can all speak and hold conversation. You need to start a podcast. And he's like, what's a podcast? Like everyone at the time. I said, well, let me show you. So I showed him some examples of it. And he goes, Shane, that's unbelievable. Amazing idea. How do we do it? And then I explained to him, I said, well, Dad, you need a microphone, you need headphones, a laptop, desktop, editing software, learn how to produce and edit and scale. And I said, whoa, too much information. I'm not interested.
Yeah. It did seem like the barriers to creating a podcast back then was so high, because I remember even people saying, oh, you need to have a special soundproof room and all of this sort of stuff. But obviously, well, we'll go on to how all of that has changed over the years.
Yeah. So that was the initial seed. And I was like, wow. I said, imagine there was an app for someone like my dad or anyone where you just open the phone, say what you want to say, hit share and you're done. Remove those barriers to entry, as you said. And the term less is more came to mind, which is a great design philosophy. And that's where the name Lemur comes from. Limor
Great
for
name.
people. Yeah. And play on the words of the lemur animal, of course, who doesn't like a lemur. And that was the seed, the genesis. And that's, as I said, I was still playing the rugby, and it took another year of researching the market. And there was no stats. You just couldn't get any stats in the podcast market. It was so small and inconsequential that you just couldn't get. And I was digging out and trying to find and problem solving any comparative products. Is there anyone trying to fix this issue? And if there was, what way they did it well and what they didn't do well, and trying to evolve my product and vision and idea for what it was. And as I dove into the podcast industry, I just kept finding problem after problem after problem after problem. It's not just the getting started is an issue. It's everything else with it. So we essentially said, instead of trying to compound this and build something else in the traditional podcast market, that you're going to hit those problems eventually anyway, because innovation is stifled. Let's go over here and build something completely new that can be innovated and evolved to your heart's content and can still feed into the traditional podcast market. So that's essentially was the seedy idea for Lemur, to make it easy for everyone to engage and enter podcasting. All they need is their voice in their phone on Lemur, and then solve the issues of sharing and distribution. And the big issue as well with podcasting is we're in the era of social media, and podcasts are not social. Still, they're not interactive. So you'll understand that. And the issue of, right, how do I get engagement? How do I get feedback? How do I talk to my listeners and audience? Solve that issue, which we've done. We've did that as far back as 2016, 17 with our first prototype. We voice comments, so you can talk directly to the host and they can talk directly back to you, and the guests can join in the conversation, and it makes it social audio. And it wasn't just about podcasting. It was about breaking the mold of voice content, because what we're doing now is a traditional podcast, as I would say. You reached out to me, we set up a schedule, there was potential Q&A, it's long form, it's going to be highly produced and really well produced and edited, and a lot of time and effort. You get a great quality product, but it's a lot of time and effort. Mm-hmm. And that puts off a huge amount of people. Even when they start, they go, oh, I can't maintain this. I enjoy it, but it's just too much. And they drop off.
Yeah.
So with Lemur, you can do a 1 minute recording every day and pump it out. Boom. That it allows you to do every type of content you want.
Love it. And what about the pressure to keep up with? I mean, technology is something that you have to be completely on top of it all the time, don't you? So how does that pressure play out for you?
That's the highest pressure I have, is again the technology side of it. I have an excellent tech partner, CTO Warren Kavanagh. I actually played rugby with Warren in Dublin back in the day, which is crazy. Like, we hadn't spoken in 10 years, and I reconnected through a mutual friend and found out he actually was Ireland's top app developer for like 10 years. And I was like, what? And he was a prop as well. No disrespect to props, but they're not stereotypically seen as the brightest guys on a rugby team, but he's a super smart guy, incredibly successful in what he does. And again, the belief, he believed in the vision and believed in me and what I was doing and got involved. And we've been through a hell of a lot together as well, work very well together. But the tech side of it is the biggest pressure, because it's expensive to maintain, because you need people of specific skill sets that can, because Lemur's a platform, it's not just an app. With that is raising the money then as well to fund that, because as you said, tech doesn't stand still, it's always evolving. So once you get one thing made, you have to be evolving for the next update and the next version and the next and the next and next. We have a roadmap, and the good thing is, because of future proofing, like, we know where Lemur needs to be in the next 3 years, 4 years time, and the feature set and the tools you need for that. But then again, you need to get the funding in to drive that from a tech perspective, and then build the revenue generation. So you're washing your own face as well, which is going really well currently. It's starting to build some real nice momentum on the B2B front, the Lemur enterprise. This is that ebbs and flow and evolution of product, and the B2C market and the B2B market. So in terms of adoption of creating podcasts, consumption has gone through the roof. People are listening to more podcasts than ever for longer than ever. And Edison Research, they are the go-to for research. And they were the only company I could find when I first started this journey who had any stats on podcasting. They're incredible. But this is the first year that they've said, in the whole time I've been doing this, that podcasts are now mainstream. First year.
Yeah.
And they're mainstream in the sense of the consumption. So you're looking at 465 million, probably going to be about closer to 500 million by the beginning of next year, global listeners. But there's only 5 million podcasts globally. Of those 5 million, 25% of people have only made one episode.
Really?
Yes.
They're like, I gave it a go. Not my thing.
Not my thing. Oh, it's too much work. No, that I didn't get 100,000 listens on my first episode, so this thing doesn't work. And this is the other side of it as well. And then you're looking at, of those 5 million, I think it is 750 are active. The rest are not active. So I hear this thing all the time, and it's a fallacy. Oh, podcast, everyone's podcasting. It's oversaturated. There's no point in getting started because there's too much competition. The biggest load of I've ever heard, because that is nonsense. They're probably referring to the number of people consuming, not creators. And that's where the opportunity lies. It's a massive opportunity for podcast creators like yourself to dominate, because there's so few people actually doing it consistently and doing it well. And for you to become, so the average podcast only gets 141 downloads over 30 days.
Is that
That's
right?
the average. That's average. This comes from Libsyn, which is one of the biggest hosting platforms in the world. You could get over 100 downloads a month. Statistically, you're doing really well.
Happy days.
Yeah. And if you get over 50,000 downloads over 30 days, you are a top 1% podcaster.
Wow. That's
globally.
for one episode, presumably.
Yeah, one episode over 30 days.
Yeah.
50,000. You're top 1%er. To become a top 1%er on Instagram, you would need millions of likes. True.
So, well, I mean, this is giving us a good benchmark, Shane. Let's get this one to 50,000 downloads.
Easy. Great quote. I love using quotes. You probably gathered from this conversation. Plans are nothing. Planning is everything. So that was Dwight D. Eisenhower, former head of the Allied forces in World War II, the man who put the plan together to invade Europe and save it from the Nazis. Plans are nothing. Planning is everything. The plan is we're going to invade Europe. Okay, great. How are you going to do it? Same with podcasting. I'm going to start a podcast. Great. How are you going to make it happen? And that's why 25% of people drop off after one episode, because they don't have the planning. We come into corporates, we provide the toolkit, but also the consultancy and the planning and the strategy to make you that 1%er. So we provide that. And then another unique thing we have, which is very exciting in Limor Enterprise, is it's team podcasting. So the organization will purchase from us a subscription for a business profile. So let's use a newspaper, for example. Let's say Sunday Times. Okay, most people would know them. Sunday Times will buy a profile off Limor, and then they'll go to their 100 journalists who will set up a personal account. They all get linked to the business profile. They now have 100 journalists instantly, podcasters instantly. But it's social, it's engagement. So it gives everyone a voice in the company. And it's that B2B, and that has taken a lot of years and a lot of testing and a lot of meetings and pain points.
I want to ask you the question that I ask pretty much all my guests. What does success mean to you now, and how has it changed over the years?
Success is setting goals and achieving them. There's long-term success, which is long-term goals, and then there's short-term success, and it's achieving the short-term goals ultimately leads to the success of the long term. So again, going back to the rugby side of it, on the way up, when I was coming up through the ranks, I had the short-term goals of, right, I need to get and tick those, but that's success to get to the next success. It's never ending, really. If you're a driven person and you want, it's never ending, because as soon as you achieve quote unquote success or a goal, what's next? Sport again. You go out, you train Monday to Friday for a game on the Saturday, you win on the Saturday. Guess what? You're back training on Monday to Friday for the next game, because that game was last week. You have to focus on the future. So there's that aspect of it. For me in Limor, success will be taking Limor to the level I know I can get it to, in terms of ultimately in business, it comes down to revenue generation, money, financially, that side of stuff from for the investor side of it. But to have Limor recognized as one of the premier, our number one voice social audio platforms globally, innovators in the space that broke the mold, that people go to and recognize, like on Mail, for example, MailChimp. It's a recognized brand that people use. There's loads of different ones out there, but it's in their niche are top dogs, or Shopify for building websites. Having it recognized as a brand there and returning value and shareholder value, the people who invested in me, being able to give them value for investing in me in the first place. That's success for me. That would be success for me. Basically being able to reward the people who backed me.
Do you want to talk about what success means to you on a personal level, not just Limor?
they're very linked. You see, the thing is, it's like your lifestyle. You know, you are, as when you're a rugby player, as much as you want to, it is your everything, you know, in terms of the success of Lemur is on a personal level. What would happen with that is the financial success that would come with it would give me the time to do things on a personal level. Like, you know, spend time with my parents and my family and look at, I don't know, other business ventures as well that I enjoy. Doing things that I enjoy. That's the thing about financial freedom. It gives you the freedom to do things that you enjoy to do, you know? And I would rather be in a low paid environment doing something I enjoy than in an environment that is not enjoyable and that I don't have passion for, that you're getting remunerated a lot for. You could do that for a short period of time to get the money to be able to find something, but it's not a long-term strategy whatsoever. And I've seen it destroy people. You know, I don't like to use happiness, because happiness is, like we said, me in the car, that's happiness, and it's fleeting. It's contentment.
Yeah.
More than anything, I'm content with where I'm at and having options. Having options is what leads to contentment, because if you're in a position you don't have options, that's a dark place. Being in a position personally is having enough success through Lemur. Please God, I'll go into plan where I have the options to decide what to do next and have time, because time is the most valuable thing you can have.
Oh, I couldn't agree more with you. This is a delicate question, so feel free to touch this question if you choose to. Are there people who have played rugby at the level that you played, retired at the age that you retired at, and then never had to work again? And would that have been an option for you?
No. Rugby, there is not enough money in rugby for people to be able to retire, even at the highest level. There's guys who can be extremely comfortable and they could live like a hermit and pull back their standard of living and probably live for 10 years reasonably comfortably. But no, even the top guys, they all would look to invest in other things, property or other businesses or startups. They have to be very strategic and smart with their money. That's the high level guys who have the options and the freedom to do that. The majority of rugby players aren't able to do that. I think the average for a professional rugby player when I was playing in the Premiership was between 90 and 100 grand a year, which is not a lot of money.
Yeah.
For,
I mean, it's just like peanuts compared to professional football players, for example.
That's a week. A week in professional football. So it's very unfair, but it's the nature of the beast. And again, we choose it, we love it, but remuneration, and it's in a big crisis at the moment, as I'm sure you're aware. Teams are dropping left, right, and centre in the Premiership, and security for players is an issue. And like I said, you could top flight, you might get 3-4 years. It's getting more and more like NFL. Now, there might be one or two guys in there, but very highly unlikely.
It's going to be the minority if that is
the case. They're probably already coming from money, so outside like that.
Tyndall.
No, well, Tins, I think Tins comes from relatively humble backgrounds, he's done incredibly well career-wise. He's built himself up, and obviously, married an unbelievable lady as well.
Doing all right, yeah.
What was your story actually about?
The story is that there's a local Holborn holiday park down the road from me that has an indoor swimming pool with a slide and things. And I was there when my little one was like 3 years old, so about 7 years ago. And I was there with a friend who also had her little one with us. And I see this guy and I'm like, he looks like a rugby player, big guy. But I'm so oblivious when it comes to anybody, famous. Like, I literally have no idea. And so my friend's sort of standing behind him and going, oh my God, like this to me. And I'm like literally, yeah, I guess he's a famous rugby player, whatever. And then at one point, his daughter swims in front of me and then tries to climb out of the pool. And she's like a similar age, like 3 years oldish, I would imagine. And she's struggling to get out. So I give her a little shove.
Yeah.
not realizing that I'm touching a royal person's bottom.
Yeah.
But anyway, it wasn't until we came out afterwards and my friend was like, oh my God, that was Mike Tyndall. I'm like, who the hell's Mike Tyndall?
Yeah.
Anyway, so I know now. I've been educated.
There
And I
you
would
go. Oh no,
recognize him now. But
he's a great guy. Like Tins is one of those guys. If you can help in any way, he will. He's an absolute gent and very, very chill, laid back personality. Like before games, like some guys would be headbutting the wall, you know, getting themselves psyched up for games. Tins would just be chilled out, you know, stretching, sitting back. Very, very calm under pressure. Cool, collected guy, but an absolute gent. And you know, he's killing it in the podcasting game now as well. He's a host of the Good, the Bad, and the Rugby himself. It's funny because Tins was one of the first guys I ever spoke to about Limor as well. And I told him, I said, listen, man, this is what's going to happen in podcasting. And again, like most people, it's like, oh, I don't know, like podcasting, I don't know much about it. And, you know, all that kind of like everyone I spoke to. And last time I saw him or I got to talking, I told you, Tim, he says, yeah, you were right. You know, you were right. Podcasts are massive. And he's doing incredibly, like they've a live tour. And Alex Payne is the host as well. He's former Sky Sports. He does a lot of professional stuff. He's a great guy too. So they have a really cool dynamic and really great brand. So like, he understands podcasting. You never know, he might be a guest in your show in the future too. Who knows? He was a professional athlete, rugby player, and then the media side of it, that it is kind of, he's an influencer in his own right. He's done the reality TV stuff. He does a lot of like speaking and after dinner events, and he does a hell of a lot for charity as well. He's incredible for helping charities too. And then the podcast, and he enjoys it. And that's what I'm talking about, the freedom and the opportunity. He's in a position where I'm sure he has lots of opportunities for things to do, and he can choose what he wants to do.
Yeah.
And he's passionate about and enjoys. And that's a huge part of the success, is that opportunity and freedom to choose, you know?
Yeah. Which is what we all want at the end of the day, isn't it?
There you go. So if anyone's listened, there's a good answer if you haven't thought of it. Just try and figure out how you can make that happen.
Well, it is. And I think, you know, a big part of it is knowing how you would spend your time. You know, one of my favorite questions to ask people, not on this podcast necessarily, but even with clients and just friends as a, you know, fun thing, I'll say, what would you do if you suddenly had £100 million in the bank and you never had to work again? And those answers give you a really interesting insight into people. You know, some people are like, wow, I would just go on holiday and I'd blow it all on, you know, big house, big car, big blah, blah, blah. And then other people are much more thoughtful in their answer, and they've clearly spent a bit of time thinking about it, and then their passions come through and their eyes light up, and it's really fun to watch. And actually the ones that have quite well thought through answers tend to be the ones that really love what they do already, and it would just take those passions and interests to a whole nother level. So they're not starting from scratch. It would just be building on something that they're already loving.
Yeah, 100%. And that's kind of my thinking as well. There's very little I would change currently what I'm doing. Definitely business. I love business and building things and trying to scale them. And I love the aspect of the networking aspect. That's what I love about podcasts as well. It's great because talking to people, hearing their stories, and where you can, that group of working with similar minded people with the same kind of ethos and morals and integrity and values as yourself, and try and work together and help them where you can. And that's it. Yeah. So brilliant stuff.
Oh my goodness. I've just absolutely loved speaking to you. I think your story is really inspiring, and hopefully people will listen to it and perhaps not resonate, because, you know, very few of us become professional athletes, even if we have aspirations or dreams to do so. But I think everybody will be able to relate to a situation where they have that you described, where you know that you're capable of something and you really want to demonstrate it, but it's out of your control. And I think, you know, if you're coming from a corporate background or any sort of work environment where you just haven't been in the right environment that allows for your light to shine brightly, it's hugely frustrating. And I think a lot of people feel like they have so much more to give. So hopefully some of my listeners will be able to resonate with that feeling of frustration and wanting to really show who they are. And then hopefully follow in your footsteps to go, okay, well, that was one part of my life, and now I'm ready for the next chapter, and just follow something that I'm interested and passionate about.
100%. And that's it. If they are feeling like that, it's try and find that, find that route or passion you have, and again, working with the right type of people who can see your capabilities and talent and will be there to support you, to help you get there, because as we touched on already, you might be in what you think is your dream job, but it's the wrong people, and people is everything at the end of the day. It's the biggest risk in business, and the biggest asset in business is the right people. So 100%. And yeah, it's been brilliant chatting with you, and it's great to see you in the podcast game doing so well. If do the sales pitch now here for Limor. If you'd like to learn more about Limor, you can visit the website limor.ie. So that's LIMOR.ie. Or of course, you can download the Limor app for free from the App Store or Google Play Store, set up a profile, and instantly start creating podcasts or social audio content. And you can reach out to me via the app, or you can hit me up on LinkedIn as well, Shane Monahan, and we can connect.
I'll put all your details in the show notes as well, so it'll be easy for people to find you. Thank you so much.